Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the Tekno ET410.2 video build. In this video, we'll be jumping forward a bit to bags K and L, the shocks. I like to attack all the fluidy stuff up front, the diffs and shocks, simply because I think it helps make the overall build a little smoother. With that said, let's open bags K and L and separate all the pieces to prepare for the build. Tekno shocks include 5 different O-rings. Before we get to the building, let's take a quick look at each one and what they're used for. The first one is the emulsion screw O-ring, used to seal the bleeder screw in the shock cap. The second O-ring is the external shaft O-ring, used as an up travel limiter on the outside of the shock shaft. The blue O-rings are used in the bottom cartridge assembly of the shock. The bottom cartridge O-ring goes over the outside of the lower cartridge area on the shock body. These seal the bottom of the shock. The internal cap O-rings are fitted inside the shock cap. These seal the top of the shock. And finally, the threaded collar O-rings. These insert into the external threaded shock collars and provide resistance to keep them from moving while driving your truggy. Since all 4 shocks go together in basically the same way, we'll build one with some extended video while the others will be a little more high level. Make sure you seat the O-ring in the groove in the threaded collar. I found the best way to completely seat the shock cap O-ring was to insert it into the cap and then use your finger to press it down into the groove. Now that we're done prepping the front shocks, let's move on to the rears. Note that the piston install is directional and keyed. Make sure the flat side of the piston is facing down and key it to the notch in the shock shaft. To help prevent the threads of the shock shaft tearing the O-rings, I always install the shaft assembly into the body first, then build a lower cartridge around that. Always coat these O-rings with a small bit of shock fluid before installing them into the shock. If you're running your ET410.2 with taller short course tires, don't use this O-ring. It's only needed if you're running the standard stadium truck tire. Make sure your shock shaft is fully extended when making this measurement. Tighten or untighten the shock rod end to hit the 27mm mark. A small dab of shock fluid helps lubricate the collar O-ring, making installation a little easier. Fill the shock to the top with fluid, then slowly plunge the shaft up and down a few times to release any air bubbles under the piston. Set the shock aside to let the bubbles dissipate and move on to the next shock. The rear shocks build in the exact same manner as the fronts. Use 2 of the black external shaft O-rings on each of the rear shocks, unless of course you're running short course tires. Then you can eliminate these from your build. Following the same method you used for the front shocks, measure the rears to 37 millimeters. Dang it! Forgot the shock collar. Well, too late now. Here's another quick assembly tip. Pre-thread the emulsion screw hole, aka bleeder screw, into the shock caps prior to assembly. Filling emulsion shocks takes a little trial and error, but having more fluid is way better than not having enough. That said, I like to crown the top of the shock with fluid and add 2 drops into the cap before assembling. Once you bleed the shock, you'll see quite a bit of fluid come out of the hole. That's okay. Again, more is better than not enough. You can adjust the amount of fluid into the shock as you go along, but I always add the 2 drops in the cap just in case. To bleed the shock, slowly compress the shock until it bottoms out, then install the emulsion screw. Vigorously pump the shock for about 10 seconds, then remove the emulsion screw and re-bleed. Reinsert the emulsion screw and you're all set. Just be careful not to over-tighten it. Here's another build tip. The springs have a small splash of color painted on them. The front's green, the rear's red. I like to install the springs with the color near the top of the shock for easy identification. And that wraps up part 2 of the Tekno ET410.2 video build. We hope this video was helpful and answered any questions in regards to this Truggy's emulsion style shocks. Please stay tuned for more videos in this series by subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching.